Welcome to the podcast. Nathan Newberry here, your host. Super excited for you guys to listen in on the story of Hope Rose. She is really going over a bunch of like mind, body, and spirit. You know, she's really big on healthy stuff, and then the heal part of the beginning of the healthy stuff. So we're going to talk about like life balance. We're going to talk about the importance of saying more no to things than yes. We're going to get her to her story and some tactics toward the end. So wait until the end. We'll be able to talk even more about the importance of that. Before we jump into the whole interview here with Hope Rose, I really want you guys to have a free gift down below in the show notes. Many of my students and people that listen in here are always trying to pick up nuggets on how to build a personal brand, how to leverage AI and ads, and build a media team and sales team. Down on the link, there's a free gift to you listening in here. I want everybody to be able to have that resource to really build a bigger impact in this world. And then like and subscribe. Don't forget to do that. Hope, I'm super glad that you're on here. I'm one of the questions I asked everybody that I interview is, what is high performance, and what does that look like? What does that mean to you?
It's interesting you asked that question. And I listened to some of your podcasts and
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
he's going to ask me that. What am I going to say? So I've been preparing this for a couple of months. My background actually is in ultra endurance athletics. And so I've run 400 milers, 14, 50 milers. And so when people think of performance, it's like like the physical aspect of it. I more probably today think of like high performance is living in alignment with my values, like having that integrity, having that liberation to be authentic and living in the values that like hold true to my soul. And that is like the high performance, not so much on the external, but really on the internal, because from the internal, everything external flows.
Yeah. And there's a disconnect, right? Of like the things that we do and actually person that we are. And sometimes there's misalignment with that. And that's where sounds like you've been doing some really solid work with the aligning both of those to be kind of a true self and representing that. Because I think there's an odds. I remember, in the Bible, it talks about that. It's like, I do the things I don't want to do. And then the things I don't do, I actually don't want to do. And there's like this feud, of like, your what you do in action and the things that you really want to do and be and represent. You know, talk to the audience though too about like how you serve people now, so everybody has some more context around this, because high performance, endurance, now to kind of a mind, body, spirit, health per people to really kind of have that alignment. Talk about some of those things and how you serve people now.
Yeah, I'll get to that question in 1 second. I just want to kind of backtrack to the alignment. And if like a ship is off by like 0.5 degrees of where their destination is going to go, like you're off.
Mhm.
You're not going to end up at like, I
Right.
need to go to, Miami port. You're at maybe the New York port. And so alignment of really tuning your inner compass to like, what are my actions producing on the outside? And that's how you can like live an aligned life. And then you get better sleep, you get better, business results because you're not in conflict with yourself. I guess alignment's it's a whole podcast on itself. How do I serve and support people today? So I've always been in the health and wellness space, like my previous companies and projects have always been around holistic mind, body, spirit. I've always approached everything from a plural standpoint. What you put in your body in terms of nutrition is just as important. What you put in your body of like the people you hang out with, the social media you consume, um, choosing not to watch TV or junk news. Like junk news is just as detrimental to your soul as junk food. And so it's really this education and awareness to educate people on what they're doing
Hmm.
of like, oh, I'm making these choices. And that's part, it goes back to the alignment again. And so really serving people of like in mind, body, spirit, of every facet of their life, anywhere from like, what kind of cookware are you using to how are you investing your time or how are you spending your time? Comes down to like kind of the NLP of like your language, like
Yeah.
work is so hard or work is easy. Let's let it flow and just how
Hmm.
that energy shifts. And so
Yep.
really being very mindful of what we say externally as well as, our inner thoughts as well. And so supporting people from many different levels. We can get into this in a little bit, but one of the groups I serve is single mothers going through family court and, you know, coming out of like domestic violence, abuse situations, intimate partner violence. That's one of my key groups because I have deep experience with that, unfortunately. And so really helping mothers with navigating that whole chapter of their life.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about the origin story of the beginning stages of the growth of learning all these things up into the point right now with your success you have. Because you're a podcast host yourself, you're online everywhere. Like, talk about some of the things that you learned along the way here to build the skills that you know now.
Yeah, I grew up and, some of the things I experienced growing up were fantastic. They were wonderful. I, love those experiences. Unfortunately, there was a tremendous amount of abuse. And that will really shape a person's life
Sure.
growing up, for it was a couple of decades of really enduring some very horrific experiences. And, people can go a couple different ways. They can either turn to like drugs and alcohol and, you know, promiscuous lifestyle. I turned to running. Like running was kind of like my saving grace. And one of the statements that came on early to me, like, God sent it to me was, how can I be a blessing to someone, somehow, some way, somewhere? And that really was like the vision for my life. No matter what I was going through, as horrific as it was, I could still be a blessing, say a kind word, open the door, smile, like do something tangible.
Yeah.
I would love to gift somebody a car someday, like be that Oprah person. We'll get there. And so that has kind of really shaped. I'm in my mid 40s now. And so, I've been on the planet a few decades, and that's really shaped my running career, my previous businesses that I've had. I've always really giving back to people. And so many people are trapped in their own darkness. And somehow my life has been chosen, dedicated to be the lighthouse for people who are going through really dark, it could be really traumatic, dark situations or just minor too. It doesn't have to be, over the top capital T trauma. It could be little t trauma. And so that has really shaped how I run my businesses, my life, and my perspective on just the world and worldviews and how I interact with the world as well.
Talk to us about some of these things because I know it's not easy to go through tough things. And you talked about that. Like, people go either way. And I feel like a lot of people take the the mindset or the victimhood title and they live that into their identity. And maybe even a season they live that way. But then they work with you to help them like reshape that identity of saying, hey, let's prioritize some of these other parts of the life that are probably way better suited of shaping that identity. And I like the alignment of the mind, body, and spirit because we are those. And so many times we have inputs like you've recognized that aren't the healthiest and aren't the best. Like, talk a little bit about that process, that journey that you had to go through to get to the point where you had to align these things, and then how do you help people with that?
Yeah, one of the things I guide people in is giving them the permission to live a different script than what they've been sold. Most of society is like, oh, you go to kindergarten, you go K through 12, and then you tour colleges and you go to college for 4 years, and then you find the job and your goal is to get to the corner office, and then you get married and you have the two kids and 1.5 animals, maybe you have a lake house. Like it's like we've been sold this Hollywood script. And what most people are living in is, and this is, I actually did a podcast on this, is, and this kind of hit me too, of like, most people are living the life that they wanted to, not the life they've been given. And so they're continuously living in this fantasy that's not a reality. The reality is like, oh, I could be divorced. Oh, somebody died. Oh, I lost my business. This accident happened. Like all these things because they've been living the script of like, if you do all these things, you work for the man, like the system, you're going to be happy, satisfied. And then you're fighting at home. You're not with your kids. The kids are being raised by other people, in daycare and schools. And so really giving people the permission, like you are the author of your story. Sure, other people have, they have contributed sentences to your story, but you have the authorship of your story. How do you want your chapters to end? How do you want your books to end? Maybe it's volumes. And so really giving them this space to be like, oh, I have followed this one script. What happens if I live life like on quote unquote my terms, but God's terms of like what does source want from me? And that really can free a person's energy up because we're all energy at the end of the day. And so if our energy is like, oh, I really want to serve people in this capacity. I really want to be present for my family and for my business and my employees and make a difference in the world. And just giving them that energy space, it frees up all of that, the lack and the loss and the tightness of where they are experiencing maybe depression or darkness or sadness or grief, like whatever it is. And so that is something that I offer.
So many
Really.
times people just have life, they take life and they just let it wash over them and they're not intentional about designing it, or at least taking the moment to take stock of where they're at and where they actually want to go. And those exercises to do is hard for people because they have to sit in that pain in a way, and those struggles and the challenges of getting real with themselves. But then that also charts the path forward for designing and being intentional about their life. Why is it so hard for people to do that?
Because doing the inner work is terrifying. And the other thing is this just happened recently. People would rather cling to being right than to being loved or to having whatever they want, because to do the hard work means that they have to acknowledge what they've hidden underneath the rug, they've pushed in the closet, they've shoved underneath the bed. And that is a very scary place to be in, because they're going to have to let that old life die and go. And trust me, I know what that's like. I've been on my knees for months of just letting, oh, that was not me. Oh my gosh, I lived this lie for how many years? And it's a very humbling process. And the other thing is like, until it's kind of like hitting rock bottom. Like most people, when they hear the word rock bottom, they think of an alcoholic who's just strung out and multiple DUIs. Rock bottom has many different levels. Could be a person who has, chronic stress and, you know, um, GI issues, and maybe it's migraines. And until that pain is so great that they are just like, I will do anything to change this, that it doesn't, a person won't change until it gets so great.
Hmm.
And it's really because sometimes, we as healers or coaches, like we want other people to heal almost more than they do. And I was just,
Yeah.
talking with somebody, I was just like, oh, like here's a resource. And it was just like, I'm too busy when I have more time. And I just was like, oh my gosh, well, like, is time going to be on your deathbed when like you're missing work already because of these chronic health issues? And some people just don't see it. And
Yeah.
so it's really, it's like kind of being the mirror to them of like, if they're ready, they're ready. Obviously, a lot of people are just like, they're not sick enough until they're sick of being sick. And, it's human nature. Like people would rather, because this is the other thing too, is it's a collective state of victim consciousness. People get a hit off of being sick, broke, sad, always down, because people get, if you just even, sitting here or somebody's listening to this, just start thinking of examples in your life of somebody, is like chronically sick and you're like, oh my gosh, you poor thing. How can we help you? And it gives that brain the dopamine hit. And so we have to retrain our brain like, oh, good things come to me and I can get a dopamine hit,
Yep.
instead of always feeding
Yes.
that beast of like, I'm in this victim consciousness and I'm always broke and, bad things are always happening to me. I just keep, and as the more you say that to like your friends in your circle, the more that it enforces it.
Hmm. I know you're a big component of the power of no. And I live in Central Washington, whereas I'm always, we're in the apple capital of the world in the valley that I live in. And we have apples, cherries, and pears. But during the springtime, there's a group of people that come through and they trim the heck out of the trees. Okay. And sometimes it just looks like they're hacking the tree, like they have chainsaws and clips. You're like, they're killing the freaking tree, you know? And here's what's interesting is I use that as an analogy to understand that if we don't prune those trees, if we don't prune our life, we don't take stock, we don't cut things out that aren't helping, us. Or we're taking stock of what's influencing my thoughts, what's influencing my body, the shape of my body, the alignment of who you are, and taking the stock. You got to trim the fat. You got to say more no to things than yes to things. Especially being a business owner and being an entrepreneur, there's always a million ideas I have, and there's a million all opportunities that I can take, and there's a lot of things, and they could a lot of those directions can be successful or detrimental. But it's also, if I'm saying yes, I'm also saying no to things, or if I'm saying no to things, I'm also saying yes to other things. Talk about some of that, of the power of no.
Power of no is so powerful, pun intended. And it really gives you space in your life. It frees up where you can like add to your life. And so, in order to add something to your life, you're going to have to remove something from your life. And what too many people try to do, they try to add in all these healthy habits while clinging on to that old branch. They really want that old dead leaf, that the fat, like whatever, like whatever
It's like
habit it
eating
is,
donuts
like,
while you're doing a treadmill.
right. It's like I ran 10 miles and I'm going to reward, we're really, that's one thing that definitely irks me is like, I earned it. We don't earn, we receive,
That's I like that one.
like we really receive. And if that's a whole nother podcast that actually I'm kind of working on a whole framework of receiving. And if you, there's so many tangents I want to go off on here. Let me quickly say this about receiving. When you give somebody a compliment, how do they take it? And this is super small, but just notice how you receive a compliment and notice how that pattern shows up in other parts of your life. So let's say somebody says, "Oh, I like your shoes." And the person responds, "Oh, I got them at the thrift store. Oh, they are on sale." Instead of just acknowledging, "Thank you." Like most people kind of deflect back. Well, how is money going to line up to you? How are clients going to line up to you by like, oh, well, it was a friend. Oh, well, it just came to me. Like I didn't really work for it. And so really, really looking at this framework of receiving, and I'm doing probably a book actually on receiving, because it's been one of the most powerful shifts I've had of like really receiving like whatever it is that I want in my life. And so back to this power of no, in order to receive, we have to say no to things. And so I really structured my life probably just, it's always been part of my life. It's not like I was, doing different things and I switched to this. But like I have never owned a TV. I'm sure I've lived with people that have owned TVs, but I have never personally owned a TV. It's just not part, like I like to go to bed. Sleep is really important to me. And being an athlete too, of like getting quality sleep, like a Friday night at 8 p.m., it's time to go to bed. It's not time to party. And so, I can't, my story is not like I was partying and I just decided it wasn't for me. My story is, it's just never been like, it's just never called to me. And I'm really grateful for that. Um, and so really saying no to gossip. I say, of course, say no to alcohol, not because I have a problem with it, because it doesn't align. Like if you're just off, at 0.1 degree, where do you want your life to go? And I know that, God has called me to a very high mission, and I want to steward my story for the highest good of all. And I know, like, for me, that's my choice. Maybe for somebody else, they can have drinks or whatever. That's that, you take that up between you and God. For me, that is just it's a hard line. No. How do I invest my time? Am I investing in, um, edifying and personal growth in my life, of like the books I read, the music I listen to, like really getting nitty gritty.
Yeah,
I always have, and I'm pointing at it because it's right there, but I have a jigsaw puzzle out all the
that's
time
fun.
and I
Yeah,
just work on it. And this is a little tip for the listeners as well, but you can rewire your brain by doing something different. And I do these puzzles. Sometimes I do them upside down with my non-dominant hand. And so it's just this very meditative state. Super simple. You can get a free puzzle. Like healing doesn't have to be expensive. And you can rewire your brain by doing it with like a different hand. And so really just being intentional with how I am investing my time or spending my time, because spending has this connotation of like you're not going to get it back. And when I invest in myself, whether it's okay, I'm doing a jigsaw puzzle instead of, you know, uh, taking a drink, well, that's investing in my time, investing in my life because I can serve others in a higher capacity. And so it's all these quote unquote little things, these little drops in the bucket that I call that, they add up over time. And do you want the bucket of, spending to overflow, or do you want the bucket of investing to overflow? And if you can kind of, have that, analogy picture in your head, it really gives you a clear picture of like, oh, I can make some really easy changes to my life starting like now, starting today. It doesn't have to be drastic. And sooner rather than later, like the bucket of investing will begin to overflow, and it just keeps overflowing into people's lives and goodness and abundance and gratefulness and, impact.
Something that I've realized is high achievers, they win. They also lose, but they have more wins than losses. And I think that's designed by taking risk for sure. But it's also about the intentionality of growing and learning from whatever comes your way with life. And sometimes, they're given, sometimes they're received, sometimes not welcomed. It just happens to us, but we realize we have that. And vocabulary is really important too. I remember going through this transformation, fitness transformation. I've kind of documented a little bit online, but one of my mentors, he had talked about the power of vocabulary in terms of like saying, I haven't lost a certain amount of pounds. I've released a certain amount of pounds. Because when you have the vocabulary of saying I'm lost, when you lose your keys and lose something, you're frustrated and you want to get it back. Releases, I'm releasing it and I'm okay with it being gone. That's the, donation of, clothes or things or items or, life and the new transformation of your body and your life. And I think there's the power of no, there's the intentionality part that I've seen high performers win because they're very intentional about that growth, and it's constant growth. And it's always the point one, two, three version of yourself with growth. And I love that we've had this conversation today because it's always just mindful for hopefully the listeners here to just always remember of like be growing, be learning, but also take the time for yourself to rewire and regroup and to really kind of be, health and body and spirit aligned. What are some other things before we jump off today that you found that's going to be really helpful for people to really be able to focus on for their health?
Really being mindful of what you put in your body nutrition wise, like read the labels. I have a new product coming out called Healby. Maybe you could go in the show notes, but it really educates and coaches people on exactly what you're putting in your body, not only from a nutrition standpoint, but also physical activity, the whole mind, body, spirit principle, the body products that you use. Because again, our skin is our largest organ, and most people are slathering on like 70 plus chemicals a day. Your skin is ingesting that. And so it's really this, it's this plural, like holistic, like a circle. We're not just a one dimensional being. And that is a business owner, an entrepreneur might not think, oh, my body care choices and um what I eat has an impact. Oh, it does, because one, your dollars are speaking money, so there's that aspect of it. Two, like when you energetically show up taking care of your whole body, mind, body, spirit, that's going to impact how your employees see you, how your family sees you, because you're showing up in the world how you are relating to yourself. And so all these choices, it's not about being neurotic, it's about being mindful and like, is this choice aligned with where I want my life to go, where I want my business to go? And even future generations, like we're all entrepreneurs probably listening to this podcast, like we all got big visions. And so all these choices really do add up. And so, start reading the labels if you aren't, and really pay attention to like who's making the product. And when you become like an educated human. You're not just a consumer. You are a
Mm,
creator of your
yeah,
life.
I
So
like
many
that.
of us are, so many people are just like consumers of just like, I need this from Amazon, Prime, it's, most, states, it's there the next day. And so really being intentional of like slow living, like slow soul growth of like, how can I like slow down in order to kind of go fast. And that's all, it's all about, yeah, being mindful, being aware, because without awareness, we can't change. So the first step is becoming aware.
I love that. How can people follow you and connect with you even more?
Yeah, so it's Hope Rose Speaks across the platforms, website, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook as well. And I typically hang out on Instagram, and I'm starting to get more active on YouTube. And then obviously they can sign up for my email. I have a free download right now. It's 25 ways to transform your life in 2025, and it's some really good ideas on there. Some of them are like zero to no cost, and it just gives people a really good idea of how, whenever this recording comes out, you can still download it and you can still change your life no matter where you are in 2025. And there's some really good tips in there.
I'll put those links down below. Go connect with Hope Rose. I think she's going to be a great resource for people as they're going through their journey in life. Don't forget to take stock in your life. Take those moments that are important. Go check out those free resources down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And we'll see you on the next episode.